Hi, this is Brian Forster, and yesterday I showed you an elongated skull from Paracas, Peru, and that went over quite well. So I thought I would show you another one and give you more information again about the DNA results that we have received so far. So this is the one that I showed yesterday, and it is probably about a 8 or 9 year old female that died approximately 2,000 years ago. This is actually an exact copy of an elongated skull made by Joe Taylor in the United States. So this is not a real skull. This is an exact copy of a young, well, 8 year old child. So today I'd like to show you this one. This, I believe, is one of the classic natural elongated skulls of Paracas, Peru. Natural meaning that I believe that this individual was born with an elongated skull. Later ones, or later in time, the Paracas bred with normal-looking Homo sapiens sapiens here on the coast of Peru, and over the course of time, the genetics of the normal skull began to take over, and that is why head binding or cranial deformation took place. Now, in the comments from Barry, he's asking about blood types, and that's a very good question. So, a study was done in the late 1970s that was published, and then that information was taken off from public view. But luckily, this information was sent to me, and it was an examination of blood samples from textiles from the ancient Paracas people. So all native indigenous people, especially from Mexico all the way down to South America, if they were 100% or even are 100% Native American, then their blood types would be only blood type O. 100% blood type O. So study was also done of the Inca and Nazca people in this examination, and the results are very intriguing. Of the Inca, there were 13 samples, and again, the results should be 100% blood type O. 92.4% were blood type O, and 7.6% blood type A. So that means that the Inca likely had another genetic component that was not 100% Native American. And then amongst the Nazca, there were 5 samples that were done, 60% blood type O, and 40% blood type AB, which is the rarest blood type in the world. So again, the Nazca, it appears, were not 100% Native American people or of Native American ancestry. And then of the Paracas, there were 14 samples done, 43% blood type O, 28.5% blood type A, 7.1% blood type B, and 21.4% blood type AB. So that makes, or that tells you through evidence that the Paracas were not 100% Native American people, which is what the basic story that standard academia tells us. And then when we look at the DNA analysis, all Native American people whose ancestors came across the Bering Land Bridge, 12,000 plus years ago, should be of 4 maternal haplogroups, which is your genetic background, either A, B, C, or D. That is the standard story. Well, we examined 19, or had tested 19 of the Paracas elongated skulls, and what was intriguing was that only one of them had a haplogroup of those A, B, C, and D, and that was haplogroup B. And then when you look at the actual skull of the Paracas, you can tell that it is cranial deformation. So that's an example of an ancient Paracas that was of mixed heritage. Sorry about the airplane. Mixed heritage of normal Native American and something else. So the results were quite startling. And what we got were the following haplogroups that do not fit in with the standard migrational patterns from Siberia. We got U2E1, U2E, H1, H, K. Hard to turn the page with these gloves on. H2A, T2B, J1B1. And the commonalities of those of those haplogroups are that you find those also around the Black Sea of Eurasia. And as well, some of you may well know now that the largest elongated skulls, aside from the Paracas, were found around the Black Sea area, almost identical in terms of what they looked like. So there could very well be a genetic connection and migration from the Black Sea area of Eurasia to the coast of Peru. And also the timeline fits in because the skulls examined around the Black Sea are approximately 2,000 to 2,500 years old. And the Paracas, it appears, existed on the coast of Peru between 2,000 and about 2,500 or 2,700 years ago. Another intriguing thing is that what they do when they do the DNA testing is they compare the DNA with known ethnic groups. So basically every ethnic group in the world, whether alive or dead, has been examined as far as we can tell. And so what the testing does is it matches the DNA it finds with all of these different ethnicities. And that's why we've been able to establish this connection with the Black Sea. But 5 of the skulls, the result was unknown. So that's a haplogroup which is presently unknown, which makes the Paracas even more mysterious. And that, of course, is why I am pursuing this study. So if we look at some of the morphological variations or aberrations, you see that the jaw here is very robust, much larger than a normal skull. We see that the brow ridge is not here. There is no brow ridge, so this was likely a female. Then you have this protrusion on the forehead, which is unlikely something that would be produced by cranial deformation or head binding. And then the back of the skull is rounded. If it was cranial deformation, it would be quite flat. And as well, when we look this way, you see this really interesting depression here, like that. Again, probably not something as the result of cranial deformation. And then you can see this suture line coming up this way. And there should be an equal and even one coming back this way. In any normal Homo sapiens sapiens, you have this major suture here and this other major suture coming back this way. But there is no suture. You can see the suture here, but there is no suture whatsoever coming back this way. And then when we look at the back of the skull, you see all of these intriguing little plates, which are not found in most normal human beings. This curious scarring, this could have been brain surgery at one point, but these little bones are actually called Inca bones because they're a characteristic of the ancient Inca people of Peru. So there's a strong likelihood that the Paracas who died out 2,000 years ago, but didn't all die out, it's quite possible that some of them were able to move from the coast of Peru up to Cusco, the capital of the Inca, and become part of the ancient bloodline of the Inca people. And then there are these intriguing little holes, which are similar to these we find in the front of the jaw. These are called foramen, and they're for blood and nerve flow. So it's likely that the holes in the back of the skull were the result of evolution, or by design in terms of who this ancient person was, to assist in blood flow to the quite large elongated skull. So again, I believe this is a very good candidate for the earliest of the Paracas people, those having, those being born with an elongated skull. And another characteristic here is what is called the Foramen Magnum. Now, in any normal Homo sapiens sapiens, the Foramen Magnum is located here because this is the balance point of the skull. But with the Paracas, it's much farther back. That cannot be the result of cranial deformation. And it's also narrower than in a normal human being. So it's believed by chiropractors and medical doctors who have looked at some of these skulls that the neck was thinner than normal and quite likely longer than normal. And when we look at those characteristics there, what they believe is that the Paracas were not Homo sapiens sapiens, but likely Homo sapiens Paracas. They were close enough to Homo sapiens sapiens to be able to breed with the ancient ones who were normal, living on the coast of Peru. And again, over the course of time, the natural shape of the elongated skull began to change. The skull size began to shrink, and that is when cranial deformation or head binding was introduced as a way to distinguish the nobility, who were the elongated skull people, and the common people, the general population. There's also the factor that almost every one of the elongated skulls that I've seen that has any hair had red hair, and two hair experts who have examined multiple samples of the Paracas red hair say it is natural red hair, that these people were redheaded when they were alive. The red hair is not the result of bleaching or dyeing or age or anything like that. Black hair does not naturally turn into red hair over the course of time. It stays black. So those are just some more points. And in the next coming day or two, I'll be showing you another example of an elongated skull from Paracas, from the Paracas History Museum collection. And if you have any questions, how does trepanning fit into this? That's brain surgery. Well, that's a great question. One expert studied, I believe, 200 Paracas skulls that had trepanning or brain surgery and said that survival was 50% or greater. And again, that's brain surgery being done by a so-called primitive people 2,000 years ago living on the coast of Peru. Yeah, I know there are lots of questions about the rhesus factor, as in Rh positive or Rh negative. We have not been able to do that yet. But good news is that the DNA testing is not over yet. We have two more skulls that we were able to take samples from recently, and these skulls were so well preserved that tendon material, blood material, skin, bone, teeth, and ligament, and even spinal cord fluid was able to be removed. Those samples are presently in 2 laboratories in North America, and the testing is being taken care of and financed by a major foundation in the United States. We're hoping that the results will be ready for when I go to Contact in the Desert at Indian Wells, California in late May, early June. If you'd like to come and meet me, I will be at Contact in the Desert, and that's at www.contactinthedesert.com. I'll put it in the box here. So there it is. That's I'll be at Contact in the Desert. I can answer a few more questions. How tall were they? We estimate that they were between 5'2" or 5'10" and 6'2", because they had reddish hair. It's a dark red auburn hair. It's quite likely that they had lightish colored skin and possibly even had, in some cases, green or blue eyes. So again, we seem to have established a connection between the largest elongated skulls in the world, found in 2 locations and only 2 locations. One is the Paracas people and other related people in Peru, and those of the Black Sea who lived contemporaneously or contemporary times of around 2,000 to 2,500 years ago. Okay, thank you very much for your interest. And again, I will be having another live stream quite soon, and I'll show you another elongated skull. This one has reddish hair, and in fact, even has blonde streaks of hair. So stay tuned for that. Thank you.